The playground at Riverside Memorial Park in Jacksonville was quiet under the thick August heat, the kind of Florida afternoon where the air felt heavy enough to touch. Cicadas screamed from the live oaks draped in Spanish moss. A small red backpack, shaped like a ladybug, sat neatly on the seat of a swing, rocking gently in the faint breeze as if a child had just pushed off moments ago. The 5-year-old girl who owned it had been wearing a bright turquoise tank top with a glittery unicorn on the front and white shorts. Her light brown hair was tied up in a high ponytail with a green scrunchie. Her name was Sophia Harper. Her mother, Lauren Harper, had turned away for no more than 7 minutes to help a distraught older man whose golden retriever had slipped its leash near the shaded picnic area. When she looked back toward the swings, Sophia was gone. The ladybug backpack remained exactly where she'd left it. The swing still moved, slow and empty. In those 7 minutes on a Saturday afternoon, with dozens of families scattered across the sprawling park, a little girl vanished without a trace, without a cry, without anyone noticing. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office would later describe it as one of the most baffling disappearances they had ever seen. Detectives would spend years trying to understand how a child could disappear from a busy public park in broad daylight. Sophia Harper was born in April 2009, the younger sibling by 8 years to her brother, Ethan. Lauren was 31 at the time of the disappearance, a part-time physical therapist who arranged her schedule so she could be home with the kids as much as possible. Her husband, Ryan, was a project manager for a local construction firm, steady work in a city that was still growing despite the lingering effects of the recession. They lived in a comfortable but unpretentious home in the Mandarin area south of the St. Johns River, the kind of neighborhood where kids still played outside, until dusk and neighbors knew each other by name. Sophia had been a happy surprise, arriving when Lauren and Ryan thought their family was complete. She was curious, talkative, and completely obsessed with unicorns and anything that sparkled. That morning she had begged to bring her ladybug backpack because it was perfect for adventures. They had chosen Riverside Memorial Park because it was one of Sophia's favorites: huge shaded playground, splash pad, walking trails along the river, and plenty of space for Ethan to kick a soccer ball with friends. Ethan had brought 2 teammates from his travel team, and Ryan was coaching an informal scrimmage on a nearby field. Lauren had promised Sophia some one-on-one time on the playground before they all regrouped for a picnic lunch. It was supposed to be an ordinary Saturday. Temperature in the low 90s, sky mostly clear, park packed with families escaping weekend chores. The older man whose dog had run off was named Harold. Jenkins, 78, a retired Navy veteran who walked his golden retriever, Max, in the park every day. He would later tell detectives that Lauren had been incredibly kind, helping him chase the dog through the palmettos for several minutes while repeatedly glancing back toward the playground. "I kept apologizing," Harold said. "She kept saying it was fine, but I could tell she was anxious to get back to her little girl." When Lauren finally caught Max and handed the leash back, she thanked Harold, jogged toward the swings, and discovered the impossible: the swing empty, the ladybug backpack waiting like an accusation. She called Sophia's name once, then louder. She checked the slides, the climbing structure, the splash pad where kids shrieked under fountains. Nothing. Other parents began to notice the rising panic in her voice. A woman asked if she needed help. Lauren could barely speak. Turquoise unicorn shirt, green scrunchie. She was right there. Someone dialed 911 at 2:17 p.m. The 1st Jacksonville Sheriff's Office patrol unit arrived 6 minutes later. Sergeant Carla Diaz, a 15-year veteran with 2 kids of her own, took one look at the untouched backpack on the swing and felt her stomach drop. Children who wandered off didn't usually leave their prized possessions behind so neatly. Within 30 minutes, the park was flooded with uniformed officers. They established a command post near the playground and began systematic grid searches, expanding outward in careful lines. K-9 units arrived. Deputies on ATVs scoured the wooded trails. A Marine unit prepared to search the St. Johns River shoreline, though the backpack suggested she hadn't gone near the water. Every person in the park that afternoon was identified and interviewed: 43 families, 11 joggers, 6 fishermen, and a church group having a picnic. Not one had seen a child in a turquoise unicorn shirt leave the playground area. No one had noticed anyone. Suspicious approaching children. No one had heard a struggle or a call for help. By late afternoon, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team were en route. Ryan arrived from the soccer field still in his coaching shorts, face pale as he took in the helicopters circling overhead. Ethan, 13 and trying to be brave, stood beside his father clutching Sophia's forgotten water bottle. Lauren sat on a bench near the command post, rocking slightly, repeating the same phrase over and over. "I only turned away for a minute." Ryan held her, but his eyes kept scanning the crowds, as if Sophia might suddenly appear among them. The search continued through the night. Massive floodlights turned the park into daylight. Hundreds of volunteers showed up, neighbors, church members, complete strangers, walking shoulder to shoulder through brush and retention ponds, calling Sophia's name until voices grew hoarse. Bloodhounds picked up. Her scent from the swing followed it across the playground and lost it abruptly near the edge of the main parking lot, close to a row of parked SUVs. That detail would haunt investigators for years. By Sunday morning, Sophia's face was everywhere. Local news, national morning shows, social media posts that spread like wildfire. Her preschool photo, gap-toothed smile and sparkling eyes, became inescapable. Age-progressed images were rushed into production. The Amber Alert blanketed the state. At the Harper home, FBI agents set up phones and computers. Detectives asked the hard questions: custody issues, strange cars in the neighborhood, anyone acting oddly around Sophia. The answers were always no. The Harpers were an ordinary family with no enemies, no debts, no secrets that could explain this. As the first week dragged on, the theory shifted. This was no wandering toddler. Someone had taken Sophia, quickly, quietly, professionally. The untouched backpack suggested the abductor had convinced her to leave willingly, then returned it to avoid immediate suspicion. The lost scent in the parking lot pointed to a vehicle. Detectives canvassed every registered sex offender within 50 miles. They reviewed traffic cameras on nearby roads. Nothing useful. They interviewed the church group, the fishermen, the joggers again and again. They polygraphed park employees and regular visitors. They chased hundreds of tips. Sophia spotted in Georgia, in a Tampa mall, in a Walmart parking lot in Orlando. Every lead was followed. Everyone ended in disappointment. The FBI behavioral analysts built a profile. Likely male, late 20s to early 40s, familiar with the park, possibly someone who blended in easily, perhaps a parent, a vendor, or someone with a plausible reason to be around children, someone patient who had watched and waited for the right moment. But profiles don't give names. A candlelight vigil on the 7th day drew thousands. The playground was transformed into a sea of flickering lights and tear-streaked faces. Lauren stood before the crowd, voice breaking as she begged whoever had Sophia to bring her home. Ryan stood beside her, holding Ethan close. The family looked hollowed out already. Behind the scenes, detectives worked relentlessly. They mapped every vehicle that had entered or left the parking lot that afternoon, using partial plate numbers from witnesses. They subpoenaed cell phone records for towers covering the park. They re-interviewed Harold Jenkins multiple times, searching for any detail he might have forgotten. They studied hours of private security footage from nearby businesses, grainy, distant, ultimately useless. They brought in cadaver dogs, a step no one wanted to take. Nothing. By the end of the first month, over 600 tips had been investigated. The command post at the Harper home was dismantled. The daily press. Conferences stopped. The story slipped from front pages to occasional updates. Detective Mark Ellison, lead investigator for JSO, promised Lauren he would never close the case. But everyone knew the brutal truth. Without new evidence, without a witness, without a body or a ransom demand, momentum was gone. Lauren refused to accept that. She started a Facebook page called Bring Sophia Home. She posted daily memories, pleas, new age-progressed images. She organized search parties that combed remote areas of Duval County for months. She learned everything she could about missing children cases, about trafficking networks, about how some kids were taken not for ransom or harm, but for illegal adoption. That possibility, however remote, became the thread she clung to, because the alternative was unbearable. The search for Sophia Harper had only just begun. The months following Sophia's disappearance turned into a relentless grind of investigation that consumed everyone involved. Detective Mark Ellison, a 48-year-old veteran with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, made the Harper case his personal mission. He kept a photo of Sophia taped to the edge of his computer monitor, a reminder that every dead-end lead still mattered. The FBI had taken the lead on the federal side, assigning Special Agent Rachel Torres, a child abduction specialist from the Jacksonville field office. Torres and Ellison formed an uneasy but effective partnership. She brought national resources and behavioral expertise. He brought intimate knowledge of the city and its people. Together, they built what became known as the Sophia Task Force, a small but dedicated group that worked out of a borrowed conference room at JSO headquarters. First came the deep dive into the park itself. They mapped every inch of Riverside Memorial Park with the aerial photography and ground surveys. They interviewed park maintenance crews who had been working that Saturday, asking about unusual vehicles, strange behavior, anyone lingering too long near the playground. One groundskeeper remembered seeing a white cargo van parked unusually close to the swing area, license plate partially obscured by a tree. The plate turned out to belong to a local plumbing company. The driver had been on a legitimate call nearby. Dead end. They subpoenaed every security camera within a 2-mile radius, gas stations, banks, traffic lights, even the private cameras at a nearby yacht club. Hours of grainy footage showed hundreds of vehicles entering and leaving the park area between 1:30 and 3 p.m. Detectives cross-referenced partial plates with DMV records, ran them through license plate readers statewide, and manually checked dozens that matched the description of the van the groundskeeper recalled. Nothing stood out. The K9 trail remained the strongest physical clue. The bloodhounds had followed Sophia's scent confidently from the swing set, across 30 yards of playground mulch, past the splash pad and straight to the parking lot. Then stopped cold beside a spot where tire marks suggested a vehicle had pulled out quickly. The scent trail ended as if Sophia had been lifted into a car. That single detail convinced the task force this was a targeted, opportunistic abduction, not a random crime of opportunity. They expanded the suspect pool. Every registered sex offender in Duval County and the surrounding counties was re-interviewed and polygraphed. Several failed the polygraph. Each was investigated exhaustively. One man, a convicted offender who lived 10 minutes from the park, had been seen in the area that day. His alibi, a doctor's appointment, checked out. Another had no alibi but no connection to Sophia. Both were cleared. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit in Quantico delivered their profile. Likely male, 28-45 years old, above average intelligence, socially adept enough to approach a child without raising alarm. Probably local or familiar with Jacksonville. Possibly someone who worked with or around children, teacher, coach, photographer, event planner. The abductor had likely watched Sophia and her family for days or weeks, learning routines, waiting for the perfect 7-minute window. The fact that the backpack was left neatly on the swing suggested deliberate staging to delay immediate panic. This profile led to a new angle. People who had legitimate reasons to be at the park that day. They compiled lists of everyone who had been there regularly. Soccer coaches, birthday party organizers, mobile ice cream vendors, freelance photographers who took candid family photos. One name kept surfacing. A man named Daniel Voss, a 36-year-old freelance photographer who specialized in children's events. He had a booth set up near the playground that Saturday, offering free digital proofs to families. Several parents remembered him taking pictures of kids on the swings. Ellison and Torres tracked Voss down. He was cooperative, handed over his memory cards from that day, and agreed to a polygraph. The photos showed dozens of children, including one clear shot of Sophia laughing on the swing just 20 minutes before she vanished. Voss had no criminal record, no suspicious behavior on the footage, and his polygraph came back clean. He remembered seeing Lauren help the man with the dog, but said he hadn't noticed anything unusual with Sophia. Another dead end, but the photo became a haunting piece of evidence, the last known image of Sophia smiling, carefree, moments before everything changed. Meanwhile, the tips poured in, over 900 in the first 3 months. A woman in Savannah swore she saw a girl matching Sophia's description in a fast food restaurant. A truck driver claimed he'd seen a child in a white van on I-95. A daycare worker in St. Augustine reported a new girl enrolled who looked just like the missing child. Every single tip was chased down. Every single one was a different child. Lauren threw herself into the search with a ferocity that both inspired and worried those around her. She organized weekly volunteer searches, mapping out rural areas, abandoned buildings, and retention ponds within a 50-mile radius. She learned to read police reports, to understand forensic terminology, to question inconsistencies in witness statements. She started the Bring Sophia Home Facebook page, which grew to over 40,000 followers in 6 months. She posted daily updates, shared age-progressed images created by forensic artists, and begged for any scrap of information. Ryan tried to hold the family together. He returned to work after 2 months because bills didn't stop, but he came home every night to help Lauren review tips. Ethan, now 13, withdrew into himself. He stopped playing soccer, couldn't bear the sight of a field without thinking of the day his sister disappeared. He began having panic attacks at school, convinced that if he looked away for even a second, someone else he loved would vanish. The task force followed a promising lead in November 2009. A confidential informant told detectives about a local couple who had suddenly adopted a little girl around Sophia's age, no paperwork, no questions asked. The couple lived in a quiet suburb in Orange Park. When investigators knocked on the door, they found a 3-year-old foster child placed legally through the state system. The rumor had been baseless, but the lead had felt so close that Lauren cried for hours after it fell apart. By the 1-year anniversary, the vigils had become annual events. Thousands gathered at Riverside Memorial Park on that same Saturday in August 2010. Balloons, candles, a choir singing Amazing Grace. Lauren spoke, voice steady despite the tears. Someone knows where my daughter is. Someone saw something. Please, if you're listening, bring her home. Behind the scenes, the investigation had slowed, but never stopped. The task force reviewed cold cases with similar signatures, children taken from public places, no witnesses, scent trails ending at parking lots. They found patterns in 3 other Florida cases from the previous decade. All girls aged 4 to 6, all taken in broad daylight from busy parks, all leaving personal items behind. The cases had gone cold, but the similarities were too striking to ignore. Agent Torres pushed for a national database review. They cross-checked DNA from Sophia's toothbrush and hairbrush against unidentified remains in the Namus system. Nothing matched. They also began quietly monitoring private adoption agencies and underground networks that placed children without proper screening. It was a long shot. Most illegal adoptions involved newborns, not 5-year-olds, but Lauren insisted they pursue it. She had read too many stories of children stolen for private placements. Detective Ellison kept one small hope alive: the photographer, Daniel Voss. Something about the man nagged at him. Voss had moved to Orlando 6 months after the abduction, claiming better job opportunities. Ellison drove down unannounced and watched Voss at a children's festival. Nothing suspicious, just a man taking photos. Still, Ellison kept Voss's name in the active file. As 2011 turned into 2012, the task force shrank. Budget cuts meant fewer bodies on the case. Agent Torres was reassigned to other abductions. Ellison remained the constant, reviewing old tips, chasing new ones, calling Lauren every month even when he had nothing new to report. Lauren never stopped. She testified before the Florida legislature, pushing for stronger Amber Alert improvements and mandatory background checks for anyone working children's events in public parks. She helped pass Sophia's Law in 2013, requiring faster activation of alerts and better coordination between local and federal agencies. She also kept writing on the Facebook page, memories of Sophia's love for unicorns, her infectious laugh, the way she'd hug everyone goodbye. She posted the last photo Daniel Voss had taken, the one of Sophia on the swing, smiling directly at the camera. Thousands shared it. Millions saw it. Somewhere, someone recognized that smile. But in those long, grinding years of 2009 through 2012, no one could have predicted how the pieces would finally fit together. The search for Sophia Harper was far from over. The years after 2012 settled into a rhythm that was both punishing and numbing. The Sophia Task Force had officially disbanded in 2014 when federal funding dried up, but Detective Mark Ellison refused to let the file gather dust. He moved it to his own desk, a thick accordion folder that grew heavier with every new tip, every re-interview, every dead end. He reviewed it monthly, sometimes weekly, chasing ghosts through databases that grew larger and more sophisticated with each passing year. By 2015, genetic genealogy was starting to make headlines in cold cases, but missing children without remains offered no crime scene DNA to compare. Sophia's profile, hairbrush, toothbrush, cheek swab taken in Tunandine, sat in CODIS, waiting for a match that never came. Still, Ellison pushed the lab to retest samples whenever new technology emerged. He attended conferences on child trafficking, illegal adoptions, and long-term abductions, taking notes in the margins of Sophia's file like a student cramming for an exam he could never pass. Lauren Harper became a fixture in the missing children community. The Bring Sophia homepage had grown to nearly 100,000 followers. She posted every anniversary, every birthday, every holiday. She shared new age-progressed images, Sophia at 8, at 10, at 12, created by NCMEC artists who somehow captured the sparkle in her eyes even in computer renderings. She organized annual searches that drew fewer volunteers each year, but never zero. She spoke at schools, Rotary clubs, law enforcement trainings, always ending with the same plea. If you know something, say something. Silence protects the guilty. Ryan tried to keep life moving forward. He coached Ethan's new sports teams, basketball, then track, anything that didn't involve a soccer field. He worked longer hours, took on bigger projects, anything to avoid coming home to a house that felt frozen in August 2009. Sophia's room remained untouched, unicorn posters still on the walls, ladybug backpack hanging on the back of the door, bed made with the glittery, turquoise comforter she'd picked out herself. Ryan couldn't walk past the door without feeling his chest tighten. Ethan, now in high school, carried the weight differently. He was angry at the world, at God, at his parents for not protecting her, at himself for being on the soccer field that day. He started skipping classes, hanging out with older kids who smoked behind the gym. Therapy helped a little, but mostly he just wanted to forget. When friends asked about the missing sister flyers still posted around town, he'd shrug and change the subject. The marriage cracked slowly, then all at once. By 2017, Ryan moved into an apartment near his office. The divorce was quiet, almost gentle. Two people who still loved each other but couldn't survive the gravity of shared grief. Ryan remarried in 2020 to a kind woman named Claire, who had never met Sophia and therefore didn't flinch at the untouched bedroom when she visited the house for Ethan's things. Lauren didn't hate her. She was relieved someone could give Ryan the lightness he deserved. Lauren's health began to slip. She lost weight she didn't have to lose. Sleep came only with medication she hated taking. Friends drifted, not out of cruelty but exhaustion. Conversations always circled back to Sophia. Lauren understood, but understanding didn't fill the empty chairs at holiday dinners. She kept volunteering, reading to kindergarten classes at local schools. The children were the same age Sophia would have been in the early years, then older, then teenagers. It hurt every time, but it also felt like the closest she could get to mothering her daughter, reading the same unicorn book Sophia had loved, watching little girls with ponytails laugh at the funny voices. Detective Ellison retired in 2021, handing the file to a younger detective named Sophia Ramirez. No relation, just cruel coincidence. Ramirez was sharp, compassionate, and promised Lauren she would keep the case active. She digitized everything, uploaded new age-progressed images, entered Sophia's information into every new database that emerged. She called Lauren on anniversaries, even when there was nothing new. By 2023, the vigils at Riverside Memorial Park had shrunk to a handful of loyal supporters. Lauren still came every August, setting up a small table with Sophia's photo, the ladybug backpack, now faded and fragile, and a battery-powered candle. She read a letter aloud to the empty swings, words she could never say to anyone else about the guilt that had calcified around her heart. Ethan, now 22 and living in Atlanta after college, came home less and less. When he did, conversations were careful, landmines everywhere. He had a girlfriend who didn't know how to navigate the topic of his missing sister. Lauren tried not to ask too many questions, afraid of pushing him further away. In 2024, Lauren turned 50. She looked 60. Gray had taken over her once dark hair. She moved slower, knees aching from years of searching fields and forests. The Facebook page still updated daily, but comments had slowed to a trickle, mostly other parents in the same endless wait. She had long accepted that Sophia was probably gone forever in the way that mattered most, but acceptance didn't mean surrender. She kept the blog, kept the flyers, kept the rituals. Giving up would mean Sophia disappeared twice, once from the park, once from memory. And then, in the summer of 2025, everything changed. Detective Ramirez called on a humid July morning, voice tight with something Lauren hadn't heard in 17 years. Urgency. "Mrs. Harper, Lauren, I need you to come to the station. We have a DNA hit. It's significant." Lauren's knees buckled. She gripped the kitchen counter, the same one where Sophia used to stand on a stool to help stir pancake batter. "Is she? I can't say more over the phone. Please come as soon as you can." The drive to JSO headquarters felt both instantaneous and eternal. Lauren's mind raced through every impossible scenario. Remains identified, a confession, a body finally found. 17 years of bracing for the worst had prepared her for bad news, not this careful neutrality in Ramirez's voice. She was led to the same conference room where agents had once set up phones in 2009. Detective Ramirez sat across from her, flanked by an FBI agent Lauren didn't recognize. A thick folder lay closed on the table. On top of it, a single photograph, a young woman in her late teens, light brown hair in loose waves, green eyes that made Lauren's breath catch. "Lauren," Ramirez began gently, 4 months ago, the FBI and FDLE executed warrants on a long-running illegal adoption ring based out of Orlando. It wasn't the usual black market babies. This network specialized in older toddlers and preschoolers, children who could be passed off as slightly younger with falsified documents. They targeted vulnerable situations, but also opportunistic abductions when the right child presented alone. During the raids, agents seized biological samples the ringleader kept as leverage: hair, blood, buccal swabs from every child placed over 3 decades. Those samples were processed and run through CODIS. Ramirez opened the folder, slid the photograph closer. "This is a match to Sophia's DNA. 100%. Parent-child match." Lauren stared at the face, older, matured, but unmistakably her daughter's bone structure, the tilt of the smile, the shape of the eyes. "She's alive?" "She's alive. She's 17, almost 18. She's been living in Gainesville under the name Ava Claire Montgomery. The couple who raised her, David and Elaine Montgomery, believed they adopted her privately through a legitimate attorney in late 2009. They paid a large sum, received paperwork that appeared authentic, and had no reason to suspect otherwise. The network used a facilitator named Marcus Hale, a former social worker turned broker who worked with a spotter. That spotter was Daniel Voss. The name hit Lauren like a physical blow. "The photographer?" Ramirez nodded. Voss confessed as part of a plea deal. He'd been working parks and events for years, taking photos, building trust. He watched your family for 2 weekends prior. On the day Sophia disappeared, he saw you helping Mr. Jenkins with the dog. He approached Sophia, told her he'd found an injured baby bird near his van and needed help because she looked kind. She went willingly. He lifted her into the van, drove to a predetermined handover point in Orange Park. The ladybug backpack was returned to the swing to buy time. Within weeks, Hale had altered records, created a false birth certificate, and placed her with the Montgomerys, who were desperate for a child. After multiple failed IVF attempts, they moved to Gainesville for David's faculty position at UF. They gave her a good life, Lauren. Stable, loving, educated. She's about to start her senior year of high school, wants to study veterinary medicine. Lauren's mind reeled. 17 years. Her daughter had grown up 30 minutes away, attending football games, learning to drive, celebrating birthdays, while Lauren lit candles at an empty playground. Where is she now? The Montgomerys were arrested on federal charges, but prosecutors are treating them as victims of fraud rather than traffickers. They're devastated. Ava, Sophia, she's with a therapeutic foster advocate in Tallahassee undergoing intensive counseling. The revelation destroyed her world. She doesn't remember anything before age 5 or 6. Her earliest memories are of the Montgomery home, of being their daughter. Lauren's voice cracked. Does she know about me? We've shared everything. Your page, the searches, the letters, the law named after her. Her therapist is moving very slowly. She's angry, confused, grieving the only parents she's ever known. She's not ready for contact yet. Lauren nodded, tears falling silently. 17 years of imagining the worst, and the reality was this impossible, painful miracle. What happens now? Reunification therapy if and when she's ready. It could take months, years. She's legally an adult in a few months, so no one can force a relationship. But you're her mother, Lauren. That never changed. Lauren looked at the photograph again, tracing the outline of a face she'd memorized in every age-progressed image. I've waited 16 years, she whispered. I can wait longer. Outside, the August heat pressed down as it always did. But for the first time since that Saturday afternoon, Lauren Harper felt something shift inside her chest. Not peace, not yet, but the faintest flicker of possibility. Her daughter was alive. And somewhere, Sophia, no, Ava, was beginning the long, brutal journey of learning who she really was. The first contact came 3 months later, in early November 2025. Lauren was in the kitchen, making coffee on a gray Florida morning, when her phone lit up with an email from Dr. Elena Vasquez, the psychologist assigned to the reunification process. The subject line was neutral. Update on correspondence. Lauren's heart stopped for a beat. She sat down at the table before opening it. Dr. Vasquez wrote that Ava, still firmly using the name she'd known her whole life, had agreed to begin written exchange. It would be slow, monitored, and entirely at Ava's pace. Letters only for now. No expectations, no timelines. Ava was still in protective therapeutic housing in Tallahassee, processing intensive counseling after the arrests. She was angry, disoriented, grieving the only family she remembered. But she had expressed curiosity about the woman who had never stopped searching. Lauren cried while reading the guidelines attached. Keep letters brief, avoid overwhelming emotion, focus on facts and gentle information, let Ava lead. She spent 5 days writing the first letter, revising until it felt safe. Dear Ava, thank you for allowing this. I know how hard it must be to even consider opening this door, and I'm grateful for the chance. I won't try to flood you with things you don't remember or feelings you're not ready for. I just want you to know the simplest truths. You were born in April 2009, and from the moment we brought you home, you were loved beyond words. You were a bright, curious, happy little girl who loved unicorns, anything that sparkled and helping anyone who seemed to need it. That day in August, when you disappeared, I turned away for 7 minutes to help an older man with his dog. Those 7 minutes changed everything. I have carried that moment every single day since. I never stopped looking. There's a Facebook page called Bring Sophia Home that I've kept updated for 16 years. Photos, age-progressed images, memories, please. Dr. Vasquez can share the link if you ever want to see it. Your brother Ethan is 24 now, living in Atlanta and working as a graphic designer. He remembers you clearly and has missed you his whole life. He's here whenever you're ready, with no pressure. Your father Ryan still lives in Jacksonville. He is remarried, but he thinks about you constantly. I kept your room for a long time. A couple of years ago, I finally boxed some things, but your ladybug backpack is still here, waiting on the dresser just as you left it. I volunteer reading to kindergarten classes every week. I read the same unicorn stories you loved. It hurts, but it also keeps me close to the little girl you were. I'm not writing to take the place of the life you've known or the parents who raised you. I just want you to know there is another piece of your story that belongs to you whenever, or if ever, you want it. Whatever you decide is okay. Letters, silence, anything in between, I will respect it completely. With care, Lauren. She sent it through Dr. Vasquez and then entered a new kind of waiting, sharper than the old one, because hope now had a shape. Ava's reply arrived just before Christmas 2025. It was forwarded as a scanned handwritten letter, 2 pages in careful, slanted writing. Lauren, I don't know how to do this. Dr. Vasquez says just be honest, so I will. I'm furious. At Hale and Voss for taking me. At the Montgomerys for believing the papers even if they say they didn't know better. At everything for letting a whole life be built on a lie. And yeah, at you too. I know it's not fair. You didn't mean to turn away. But you did. And because of those 7 minutes, I grew up thinking I was someone else. I don't remember you. I don't remember being Sophia. My first memories are in Gainesville. David pushing me on a swing, Elaine making pancakes shaped like hearts, thinking they were my real parents. That was my childhood. That was my family. And now they're gone. I'm not allowed to see them. I finished my senior year online because I couldn't face school. I looked at the Facebook page. I scrolled for hours. I saw the searches, the candles, the posters, the law you helped pass. I saw how much you hurt. It made me cry, and then it made me mad. It made me that I was crying for you when my own world just collapsed. I still want to be a veterinarian. I've loved animals forever, but college feels far away right now. I don't know if I'll ever be able to call you Mom. That word belongs to someone I'm grieving. I don't know if I want to meet you or Ethan or Ryan. I don't know if I want to be Sophia again. Ava is who I've been for 16 years. But I have questions, stupid ones maybe. Was I really obsessed with unicorns? Do I look like you? Did I have a favorite song? We can keep writing. Short letters, I'm not ready for more. Ava Lauren read it until the words blurred. Then she folded it carefully and placed it inside the ladybug backpack that had waited all these years. She wrote back the same week, short, steady, answering every question Ava had asked and offering nothing more. The letters continued into the new year. Small exchanges at first, favorite colors, both loved teal. Foods, both hated olives. Animals, Ava sent. A photo of herself at 12, holding a rescued kitten. Lauren sent a single childhood picture each time, never overwhelming, just one. In January 2026, as the calendar turned to the 17th year since the disappearance, Dr. Vasquez emailed again. Ava has agreed to a 15-minute video call next month if you're willing. Supervised, neutral setting, no pressure to continue. Lauren stared at the screen for a long time, tears sliding down her cheeks. She typed back one line. Tell her yes. I'll be there. The story wasn't over. It was barely beginning. 16 years and 4 months after a little girl in a turquoise unicorn shirt vanished from a swing in Riverside Memorial Park, her mother was finally going to see her face again. Older, changed, carrying a different name and a different life. It would not be the reunion Lauren had dreamed of in the darkest nights. It would be cautious, painful, slow, but it would be real. And for now, on this quiet January morning in 2026, that was everything. Thank you for staying with this story to the very end, or rather, to this quiet, open moment where the real story is only just starting again. If it moved you, reminded you how fragile and precious time with loved ones can be, or gave you even a flicker of hope in the power of never giving up, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Your support helps keep these true stories alive and brings attention to the families who are still waiting today. Wherever you're watching from, thank you. And if you have a missing child case you believe deserves more light, share it in the comments below. Every voice matters, every story matters.